Stroke of Luck. I'm RenéMarie, and we're really honored to have the opportunity to come into your homes or your car, or if you're listening to us, not driving, you know, the social media world and this platform, Dr. Ceonzo and I were just talking about, and Judy and Jim, of course, we're talking about the impact that this coronavirus has had on us. And although it has been a pandemic, and the words can't even describe how tragic and devastating and horrific it has been, it also has had some blessings. And those blessings are the way that we can connect from around the world, and the way that people have just used their imagination to really survive. And it really has been a survival skill. And it's been amazing to watch. It's been horrific as well. I don't want anybody to think that we're taking anything lightly in this environment, but in life you have to look at the blessings, because otherwise you get so devastated and so overwhelmed and crazed and just depressed, and that has been an issue, not an issue, but a tragic you know, through this, that a lot of people have gotten depressed because, you know, their financial and their health and their family's health. And it's just, it really has been devastating. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm taking anything lightly, but we have to look at the blessings. And one of the blessings are the way that we could all Zoom together and come together, and the way that restaurants and people are just scrambling to make it work. Even the broadcasts, you know, from around the world. I mean, you know, Good Morning America, or the Hoda show. And I mean, just everybody around the world has really scrambled to work from home. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So we want to thank everybody in the broadcasting world, and Jim as well, for working with us to still allow us to do our show. And actually it has opened the door a lot for us to have more guests that really didn't have the time or the flexibility to come to the studio. They're able to Zoom in. And of course we had Skype before, but I think Zoom is a better, a freer, easier access to use. So we're really blessed to have this opportunity that you're taking your time to come in. But this is really an important show. Of course, everybody knows that our mission is stroke and aphasia. Aphasia because, you know, it's in the brain and you can't really see the effect that a stroke or a brain injury has had on a person that suffers from aphasia. So I really thought it was crucial for me to make sure that when I'm talking about strokes, that I also include aphasia. But today we're going to talk about visual after strokes, stroke therapy. We have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful doctor on our show. Just 1 second. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Ceonzo. Am I correct, doctor?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it right. Anyway, because she gave me a little hint. She said C as in C. I said, oh, perfect.
Hey, Doctor, seeing, sure.
Yes. So, and Judy had, Judy, tell us how we connected through Jean Marie Gibbs. Tell us, because you're the one that found Dr. Ceonzo.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? I'm sorry, I didn't say good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Dr. Ceonzo.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm like, I'm in a world, you know, I'm in the...
I was talking with Jean Marie from Pathways Stroke, and we were discussing board members, and Dr. Ceonzo's name came up, and I thought, what a great guest.
Yes.
And contacted her, and here we are.
Yes, and she's got a wonderful, wonderful resume, which I'll let you get to, Dr. Ceonzo, in 2 seconds. But I want to talk about Dr. Jennifer Marie, because we were really teaming up. We were teaming up to do a round circle discussion from Dr. Beculus. What hospital is Dr. Beculus with?
It's Good Samaritan Hospital.
Good Samaritan Hospital.
Iceland.
Yeah, we were teaming up with them, and because of this pandemic, it got kind of pushed to the side, which we totally understand. But we really want to team up with Jean Marie, because our passions are just like aligned, our visions and passions, and really, and both of us were like, okay, we've heard about strokes and aphasia, but what are we going to do moving forward? Like we're done. Like, you know, we know things take a long time, but the bottom line is people are getting sick, people are dying, and they were dying from getting strokes during this coronavirus. So, like, you know, strokes are on the front front edge of the news, you know, now, and have to take that opportunity to reverse the leading cause of disability in the world. So we want to make sure that we're caring for people before they get strokes, because 80% of strokes can be prevented, and after strokes, that they're getting the proper care that they want. So that being said, Doctor, please tell us a little bit. Well, welcome to the show. We're really honored and privileged that you joined us today. And I could tell you're one of our family already because, you know, you got the same mindset. Like, okay, how can I help? How can I help?
Absolutely. And we shared stories, and we all have our own personal story. And I think it's very, very important to really listen. A lot of my patients end up calling me Dr. Jen after a few appointments, because honestly, and I think you see this too, RenéMarie and Judy, when someone shares that story of loss and struggle and recovery, it's extremely personal. And it's critical. You become friends, you bond over these things. And I think it's so important what you're doing with your show to bring information to people, to empower them. And I think the number one thing, Judy, and you really touched on, or RenéMarie touched on it earlier, is hope, right? It's what got us through the pandemic. Well, at least through the quarantine, so far through the pandemic. And I think it's what really people who are suffering from any kind of disease, but particularly acquired brain injuries, you have to maintain hope. It's
For not even so much for the person that's going through it, but the family around them that are going to help that person get some sort of normalcy in their lives. And it's definitely not going to be the same normalcy as they've had in the past, but to have some sort of normalcy, you really have to surround the loved ones with hope around them, and they'll be able to support their loved ones going through it. And we were talking to when I had Dr. Beculus on the phone on the show one day, and Jason, I was really saying to them, my vision, the foundation's vision, is to really set up a support system for families that immediately, when their family suffered a stroke, so that we can, because I suffered a massive stroke, so I can go to them and I could say to them, look at me, you have to have hope that anything is possible. You have to have hope, and give them that hope from the onset, because they stand there and they don't know what happens. They don't know what to do. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's,
I agree wholeheartedly. I couldn't agree more. It's utterly critical that the patients maintain that, and that they have that support. I agree 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
If you don't have someone to help you stabilize yourself, you can't think clearly, you can't plan clearly, and then it becomes very hard to try to plan your path for recovery, and your path for coping, and your path for moving forward, right? Because that's what life is about, moving forward, right?
And you have to say positive things when you enter the room of someone who's had a stroke.
Absolutely. I think I know a lot of doctors who sometimes come across sounding very negative. They're trying to be realistic, right? I don't think telling someone the worst case scenario is always the best way to start. I think, explaining the possibilities to someone is really important. And I'm a big one on education too. So just a little bit about myself, just a little.
That was my next question. Give our audience a little bit of history so that they know the experiences that you carry with you to share with them what you're going to say today.
Absolutely. So I've been an optometrist for over 20 years, and I've been in the area of vision therapy for close to 25. Before I went to optometry school, I actually got a job, getting some experience with optometry, and I just randomly applied to an optometrist who happened to be, at that time, one of the world's leading vision therapy doctors.
Wow.
I'd never heard of this thing. And I wanted to be an optometrist because I wanted to help people. It's a great field. But then I saw this whole new specialization, and I was fascinated. I'm blown away. It's amazing to watch what happens when someone learns how to utilize their visual system. But most people don't really even know that much about our visual system. So even after I finished optometry school, I went on and I completed a residency in vision therapy, particularly in vision rehabilitation at the Veterans Hospital in Northport. with another one of the world's leading optometrists, especially in traumatic brain injury and visual rehabilitation. Dr. Alan Cohen has pioneered so many of the techniques and therapies that we still use today. He's incredible, and it was a great experience. So I continued that way throughout my career, really specializing in vision therapy, and I'm a board certified specialist in optometric visual rehabilitation and what we call behavioral vision, or as a behavioral optometrist, basically saying how do we use our vision? How does our vision help us function in everyday life? So that's really my background, and that's my passion. I opened my own practice for the first time about a year and a half ago.
Congratulations.
But I've been in the field. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I've been in the field for a really long time. But it's that aspect of, flying solo, right? But it's good. It's allowed me to bring some additional tools for my patients that really weren't possible when I was practicing within somebody else's idea of what the practice should be.
Right. Their vision, you have vision, and when you're working for somebody else, you have to kind of stay within those protocols that they've designed, because that's their vision.
Yes, and they were all appropriate and
Yes.
all wonderful, but I've been able to add a little bit more.
And what are the things that you've added? What's the highlights or the visions that you had?
So one of the things that happens in my practice is I work directly one-on-one with my patients, not just in my exams, but also in the therapy that they do when they come in, and I teach them activities and exercises that they can do to actually improve the way they see and increase their visual efficiency. I really like that. There are tons of amazing therapy assistants out there who are also board certified as vision therapists. And I love them. They're so knowledgeable, but I love being able to spend all that one-on-one time with my patients.
Right.
I also added in a new modality of treatment that's really a very old modality of treatment, which is phototherapy. And this is starting to come into the forefront. For years, we've used phototherapy, say for if a baby had jaundice, you know how you're supposed to put them in the sunlight so they can heal and get better.
Right.
And it's very effective. There are actually really specific wavelengths of light that can help traumatic brain injury survivors and acquired brain injury survivors. Some of the recent studies that are coming out, which are great because they're not even done by the optometrists that are doing it. They're done by other, vision rehab, or not even vision rehab centers, but trauma rehab centers. There's a great one showing that a specific wavelength of blue light in the mornings can help people who have acquired brain injury sleep better, sleep more soundly, which is one of the #1 problems that particularly concussion patients complain of, is that they can't sleep the whole way through the night. Their sleep-wake cycles are off because their brains are off. Their brains are creating the right chemicals to allow them to sleep and stay asleep.
Is that why when someone suffers a brain injury, I don't think they do this so much with strokes, but specifically, or maybe they do, maybe we haven't investigated, and maybe this is something we should note, Judy, for the next show, another show, is I know that when people suffer brain injuries, they put them in a coma, not like an induced coma, so that their brain could rest, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so talk to us a little bit about that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, why they do that? Because I mean, I would imagine that the vision has to do with, like you just said, the brain resting.
As an optometrist, I'm certainly not the doctor who would ever be performing that type of procedure. However, that rest is really critical. After a brain injury, if we speak of strokes, if we stick with strokes,
right,
because they're all a little different, but they all have commonalities, right? So with strokes, you have the two kinds. You have the ischemic, where the brain you had a clot that stopped blood flow, and the brain was deprived of oxygen for a little while. And then you have the opposite one, hemorrhagic, where there was a bleed inside the brain, right? So that blood is very inflammatory to brain tissue. It's like poison. It's not good. And that's a big part of why they can be very devastating strokes, but as can ischemic strokes, right? Where the brain had a clot and they were deprived of oxygen. In both cases, you get a lot of inflammation. And at a subcellular level, when you slow down neurological processes, certainly not the ones needed to sustain life, like heartbeat and breathing, but when you slow those down, you give those cells a chance to recover, because as they're busy creating neurochemicals to do all the other things, like thinking, gee, what happened to me? Why is that blurry? I can't hear people. Where's my family? All these thoughts, your neurological cells, your brain cells are working. They're making chemicals. They're shooting them out to other brain cells that are catching them. You really want some of those processes to slow down, calm down, and let the healing happen. Our bodies really do have a tremendous capacity for healing, but we need those things to calm.
Right.
Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah. Because when you were saying, this is why I asked the question. I guess I should clarify, because one of my work during this my life is to find out how to bridge that gap between someone who suffered a stroke like myself, and I was able to fully come out of it. But how do we become our whole selves, or the new selves that we're supposed to, after we suffer a stroke? And I know how combobulated my brain was, that I couldn't grasp all that stuff. So how do we bridge that gap between those two entities, those two parts? So that's why I asked the question, because I'm trying to figure out, like, how to help people, how to explain to people how to get there, how to come up with this therapy or guidance or whatever. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that to you.
No. I think, I think that the critical thing, if someone has to be put into a coma, certainly they are already in really sort of an emergency state, in really a severe state of neurological distress.
Yeah.
But for patients who, have a little more control over their own situations, I would say, and I bet you realized this too in your recovery, the things that you do that are considered healthy in general are the things that are really healthy for your brain. So great nutrition, getting your veggies, eating, good proteins, good vegetables, eating great food, not junk food, getting that mild to moderate exercise, all the things that keep us healthy in general and keep our blood circulating and keep oxygen going to those cells so they can repair themselves, are the number one things that you can do and should do, right?
Yeah.
I give that advice to all my patients, but it does definitely go outside of optometry, of my specialty area, but I do think they're important, and I think it's good to courses.
Yes. So let's focus in on the eyes, because like most of us, we take for granted every part of our body that we have, because they function naturally, but the eyes are so delicate, all your parts are so delicate. And actually, one of our board members, Alicia Moss, who was unable to be with us today, had suffered a TIA, and she couldn't see when she suffered it. So talk to us about how the eyes function with the stroke, like why they get blurry or why you can't see. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. So it's exactly what you just said. Most people, we take our vision for granted. And when we think of our vision, we just think of that simple little number, 20/20. Oh, do I have 20/20 vision? Well, then it's perfect. 20/20 vision doesn't mean perfect. 20/20, it's written like a fraction. And the top 20 stands for a testing distance, 20 feet away from the chart. And the bottom number is a font size. So all that number tells somebody is if you can see a certain font size 20 feet away. But our vision functions and does so much more than just gets a letter clear 20 feet away. And any stroke survivor who's had that kind of hemi field, that loss of half of their visual field, as they can all tell you, I still have 20/20, but, well, the ones that had to have 20/20, but I still have 20/20, but this is terrible. I can't see anything to the right, or I can't see anything to the left. It's very difficult. It's important to understand that our vision is actually made up, the way we see the world. It's made up of multiple skills. One of my favorite quotes is by an eye doctor who's no longer with us, but he great quote. When vision is working well, it guides and it leads. When it's not working well, it interferes. We depend on our vision, right? All the time. But, try closing your eyes and walking through your house. Terrible, right? It's scary. You're grasping. You could do it, but you don't feel safe. You don't feel secure, and you're certainly slower, and you're not functioning nearly as well. Well, if our vision and our visual skills are impaired, we start to function less perfectly, the way certainly poorer than we should.
Right.
So those visual skills that I'm talking about, they're basically, our brain controls muscles that attach to our eyes, and they do a few essential skills. One of the skills they do is that they aim our eyes, right? Our eyes have to aim where we want to look, right? Or you don't see it nearly as clearly, okay? So that eye aiming is really very important, that tracking. In a lot of patients, when the brain is injured, and as we know, any skill that we've built over time, like speaking and aphasia, or being able to move our limbs, any of that can be affected with a stroke, right? So it's no different with being able to move the muscles and accurately aim our eyes. So when we have a problem like that, our eyes, especially with something very fine-tuned like reading, our eyes may skip around. So our eyes may be thinking that they're aiming accurately across a line, of items that they're asked to look at, but our eyes may be aiming here, then back here, and you're giving the wrong answers to the doctor as to what letters you see on the chart, or you're giving the answers out of order. And it's not because you didn't see them, but it's because the brain can only see what the eyes send back there.
Right. So that's very interesting that you should say that, because what about a blind person? Their senses for touch and for feel and for...
They're heightened.
And to play music, it's just, it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
They're amazing. And they spend a lifetime developing other skills to compensate, right? And you can, but when you're 70 or 80, which like a lot of stroke patients are, but even you at 26, you were very adaptable, and you recovered really well, RenéMarie, right? And it's part
but
of
I'm a little crazy.
That wasn't the stroke, RenéMarie.
No, I know. No, I wasn't. No, I know it's not the stroke. I know, like, everything I do in my life, I do intensely.
You could say that again.
Intensely.
That's not crazy.
Everybody's laughing. Jim's laughing. Judy's laughing. But it's true. Like, there's nothing I do in my life. So the same thing with recovery. Let's go.
I don't have time to waste, Renee.
You know what? Look at you now. I mean, how many people suffer a stroke, recover? Most people like, well, I'm just going to go back to work now, and I'm going to go on with my life and enjoy my family and enjoy my pastimes. You started a TV show. I mean, look at you. Like, you really are on a mission, and it's beautiful.
Dr. Jen, she actually was told not to drive, and within a week she was driving when she got home.
I won't tell.
I think my sister must have told you that, because I never said that. And it's very interesting because my sister's going to be on the show in 2 weeks, right, Judy?
Yes.
In 2 weeks. And why I need her to fill in those gaps, because...
Well, one of the things she said was that you couldn't wait to get home as soon as you were conscious and all that. You kept saying, I'm going home. And they said, no, you're not. And within a short time, you went home. And then they said, no driving. And you said, I'm driving.
But RenéMarie, I'm sure you didn't just hop in a car and go. I'm sure you had somebody with you, and they were, you know.
I don't know. I didn't hear that part of the story.
I don't, you know, I don't remember, but let's ask my sister next week. You can tune in and watch it next week.
You're a responsible person. I have no doubt that you did it in a responsible fashion, RenéMarie.
Yeah, you might have driven slowly, but I don't think you had anyone in the car with.
I don't know, but back to, let's
vision.
let's go.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that.
So
I could just chit chat all day with you. You're the best.
I know. So I want to bring up a slide. Let's bring. I'll share a slide. Hold on.
Slide, RenéMarie.
I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go to. Let's see. This photos? No. Hang on one second.
Which one is it about?
I want to go to PowerPoint. I want to go to the what's the other one I sent?
Is this the one with the picture of the brain and about how much of the brain is involved in vision? Is it that one?
Let me see.
Or is it about ways that family can help a patient who's in the hospital? I have lots of tips.
I know. So
I want to make sure we get them.
I know.
Well, while you're looking for the slide, I'll speak about one more.
But wait one second, because I don't want you to, because we can't. So let's do this one. What family, can you see it?
I
do. What can family and friends do for those recovering from strokes in the hospital with their eyes? So that their eyes are well, taken care of.
Yeah. So it's really critical that you have the best vision possible to start out with, right? So basically, things that family members can do, and that slide went away, but it's okay, because I definitely, if you can, particularly if it's going to be an extended stay in the hospital, weeks, you really do want to try to get a vision rehabilitation doctor in to assess. You want to reassess the eyeglass prescription. Now, people will be like, I just bought these a week before my stroke and they were perfect. It can change your prescription. I've seen it happen time and time again, particularly in younger people. However, I've seen it happen with 70, 80, 90-year-old people. 1 week their prescription is this, and a week after the stroke, their prescription is not the same anymore. Our eyes do work differently. All those muscles that aim, but also muscles that keep things clear for us.
Right.
Change. And those muscles do have an effect on the eyeglass prescription that people have. They do.
Stop 1 second. I just want to ask Jim.
Renee, someone changed something on the screen that changed the whole. I don't have the pictures up anymore.
Shared the way I shared the other time. So.
It was there.
I know it was there, but it changed the visual for the show. They can't see us.
Oh, heavens.
I just want to make sure that everybody could.
Yes, absolutely.
I stopped sharing, Jim, now. It's technical. Sorry.
The technical difficulties. Jim, can they hear us?
They can all hear you, but I cannot see anybody.
Well,
share with us. Continue to speak, and we'll.
Let me give a few tips that really you don't need a visual for.
That's awesome.
So,
perfect.
So I would say the first thing you really do want to do is, as the family.
I got it.
Visiting your loved one who's ill and they're in the hospital. you do want to try to the hospital to reassess eyeglasses to make sure eye health is okay, particularly if there was a fall involved. You can get a retinal detachment. If your retina is detached, I can't help you with controlling those muscles. We need that retina. We need it, you know? So we want to make sure the eyes are plenty healthy. We want to make sure that you have the clearest possible vision and start there. There are also some special tests that really need to be done about peripheral vision to find out. And your neurologist will usually do that. Even some other rehab specialists, your OTs and PTs, can usually pick that up pretty quickly when they first meet you. But you want to find out, did the person lose any of their peripheral vision? That's really important because it's very, very difficult, especially when you're trying to get up and do your PT and you're walking again, when you can't see half of everything. Wow. It's such a problem.
And it really emotionally affects you.
It sure does.
It affects you that, oh my God, I can't see normal. I mean, it's so intense.
And I'll tell you, with that kind of vision loss, when you lose, you know, if half of what you see in the world is lost, you know, about half my screen is blocked, right?
Right.
So when half of what you see in the world is lost, driving like that is really a problem. How do you check your rear view mirror when this is what your view is?
Right.
Head farther. If this is what your view is, how are you going to check your side mirror when you're merging onto a highway, or a child might be running after their ball into the street, even if you're just staying on local street? You do want to be super cautious. So I, as the doctor, have to really urge caution on those kind of things. And I know people want their independence back. I get it. And that I know wasn't your problem, RenéMarie. So like,
I didn't have an eye problem.
Thank goodness. Visual problems interfere with everyday life so much. It's tremendous. So still back in the hospital. So get a check on the glasses, get a check on that peripheral vision. You want to get a check on how the eyes are moving. Can they move in all directions?
Right.
Another thing you want to do is the family member. If the patient did have glasses, at least get them into the hospital. And let's say the patient had one pair that they used for driving and a whole different pair that they would put on for reading the newspaper. Label those pairs appropriately.
Good idea.
Because if the person just says, I have glasses, which is what most of us say.
Right. You don't know what they're for.
And the PT is like, oh, I'm going to get them wisely. Well, I want them to have the clearest vision, because PTs do know some, you know, they've spoken with, we were all speaking, all us rehabilitation specialists, we're all learning from one another. It's super. It's amazing. And they'll be like, whoa, I want them to have the clearest vision. I know that. I've heard that many times. So they'll say, put on your glasses and let's go walking. But if your glasses are designed for reading the newspaper, they're going to make everything blurry while you're out trying to grab onto that walker or those handrails in the PT room. That's not a good thing.
Right.
So certain things are good for certain things. So you want to, as the family, make sure you get them in there, label them with the name, sometimes the room number if you don't think it's going to change a lot, and then what they're for: reading, driving. And then all rehabilitation specialists will know what everything's for.
Right.
Really important.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead. Another great tip: when you're visiting, don't always stand on the same side of the bed if you have a choice. Sometimes stand on one side.
Oh, if you're visiting a stroke patient who has
a stroke patient,
force them to use it.
Yes. Have them look to one side, have them look to the other side. Families often pick up that there are problems and then ask for the specialized testing, because they're like, he doesn't see me right away when I stand on the right side of the bed.
Right.
And all of a sudden, a not so obvious visual field defect, or what's called a visual field neglect, which is different. A defect is like sort of an absolute, something has happened that has blocked the pathway from the eyes to the part of the brain that sees everything on the right and everything on the left.
Wow.
And you can rehab that somewhat. You can.
So I was just going to ask,
I'm suggesting early on.
That was my next question that I got from your suggesting that a visitor goes on the other side. How do you do therapy? How, if you are having visual problems, talk to us about therapy.
So therapy it takes many forms, right? So depending on where the person is at, sometimes you have to wait around for glasses to be made that the person needs to see clearly. If you try to force therapy, let's say the person is seeing double, right? And they don't have the proper glasses yet to help them see single, and you're trying to hand them exercises to get rid of double vision, it can just be an exercise in frustration. So it's tricky to jump right into those types of exercises, but therapeutic things that families do are exactly what I'm talking about. And great things like bringing the family photo album, the good old fashioned photo album, with pictures all over. And they'll be like, oh, do you see that picture of grandma? And maybe the picture of grandma is in the middle of the page, and there were pictures of all the grandchildren or something like that all around. Well, you may not realize it, but as long as they've got their good reading glasses on, they're doing a scanning exercise. You're doing something therapeutic with them.
Okay.
So, and plus, like we talk about hope, that's what most people hope for when you're really ill and you're really in a bad place, and you're not well and you're stuck in the hospital. Your family and your friends are what give you hope. You want to get back to that. So these are great things on a psychological level, but also on a vision level.
Right. That's true. We should all work on, and I talk about the families a lot because they're such the key to recovery.
Yes.
They're a key. Family and friends are the key to recovery in any single portion of, illness.
Yeah.
But, we zone in on strokes and aphasia, and we should come, Judy, we have to work on a family support.
That's very important.
Like support.
Exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, because they need hope. Like we were saying initially, they need hope better than anybody else. So with my arm is tight. It's not, it'll never be normal. But the more I throw the softball, the looser my arm gets, and I can work it out. I can work it out to be a little.
And you also said that warm weather.
Yeah, warm weather. Yes. But well, tell us if this is true, doctor, that I know two questions. If you use your eyes, is that like practice? Does that make it better? And the other question is, does weather affect it? Because with my arm, I kind of tighten up with the weather. So
both great questions. So yes, practice is really critical. One thing that sometimes, I don't think as much anymore, but I still have seen it. Someone will have double vision after a stroke, and the neurologist's suggestion will be like, well, that's bothersome. Wear a patch. Well, the problem with double vision is that this eye has forgotten how to work together with this eye. So that's kind of like saying two people don't know how to work together. Let's transfer this one to the other office. They never learn, right? They never learn anything. We need them to work together. You have much better vision with two eyes working together than with one eye alone. Okay. There are definitely glasses that will help with that. And we can make them temporary sometimes. So if your own glasses are still appropriate, which in some cases they are, there are temporary press-on lenses that we can do and put on when you get the eye doctor there that can give you that single vision back. Double vision is very confusing when you're up and trying to walk around. And sometimes double vision doesn't look like this. Sometimes double vision just looks sort of like a smear. It doesn't, if you know what I mean. It doesn't always just create two of everything.
Right.
So yes, using it is critical. So with your arm, for you, throwing a softball feels great, and it helps to loosen up those shoulder muscles and the muscles in the arm. And that's probably a tip that was given to you, or maybe not, maybe you discovered it on your own, but it may have been given to you by a physical therapist, like, hey, this, or you asked and they're like, hey, yeah, that would work. So it's good to find things that are appropriate. But if somebody has vision that's going woo, 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 and you're like, here, read, Uncle Bob, goodness, that's just frustrating, and you're going to discourage the person instead of give them hope.
Right.
So, you know, families are so smart. They know their people. We know our people.
Yes.
Right. So, you know, if you present the photo album and it just makes the person start to cry, or, you know, you're asking to find the picture of cousin Sally and they can't, that's too much, right? You got to back off. Maybe just speak to them from this side on Monday and from this side on Tuesday, or this side in the morning and this side in the afternoon, and start there, and then bring the photo album back in a couple of days when they're feeling a little better.
Before you answer the question about weather, I have another question.
Sure.
So you touched on this, that families know the patients better than anybody. So, and I love the philosophy of hospitals now, where they're involving the families in the recovery, because it's really an important tool, because that family helps the family. Like my father was in ICU for 2 weeks. Wow. And they allowed me to stay by his bedside for 24 hours a day. And we didn't, because we had to take breaks, but they allowed the family, the close family, to be around his bed 24 hours a day. And the other thing was, this nurse practitioner, who was an ace, involved me in the conversations in the morning so that I could add my piece into it from the family aspect. Do you use the family? Do you talk to the families at all?
It's critical. Yes, absolutely. Families are the best observers. Sometimes the patients themselves don't realize some of the things that are trouble, or that are problematic, particularly in a case, say, like a problem called visual neglect. The person forgot, their brain forgot about one entire side of the world. So they don't even realize there's a problem, the patient themselves. It's the family members who are the ones who are informing me and then helping guide what I suggest. I have a great book for you. I have chills just thinking about it. I read this book decades ago, I feel like. It's called Into the Blue. Now, there are a lot of books titled Into the Blue. This book in particular, it's a father's journey, or a daughter's journey, and a father's recovery. And it is about an adult man who had a stroke. He was a pilot, a ranch owner out in the West. And if you know anything about those places, you're hours away from anybody.
Yes.
So he's very isolated on his ranch. And this woman who wrote the book and her sister took turns visiting him for several weeks at a time. And they created their own therapies for their father's recovery. Wow. And it's one thing, they take away your pilot's license. He had a visual field defect. They take away your pilot's license and you have to re-earn it back. Yeah. You have to prove that you can get it back. Right. He regained his pilot's license. All the therapies that they created for him. Yes, they had specialists coming in, but they created their own therapies based on knowing their dad, knowing what he wanted out of life, not being satisfied. And it took them months and months and months and months and months of doing this. Very dedicated family.
Dr. Jen, what was the title again?
Into the Blue. And I'm not sure about the subtitle, but I know it's sort of something like A Daughter's Journey and a Father's Recovery.
We should try to get them on the show, Judy.
You should.
A daughter's journey and a father's recovery.
Yes, and I can't remember the name of the author.
That's okay. We'll find it. And then will you come back on and have a conversation? Will you come back on and be a guest while we have them on?
I would love to. I've never actually spoken to the author. It would be wonderful. I'm so impressed by her. Like, what they did for their father is nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. you know.
And it relates to what happened with me because it was a daughter's journey and my dad's hemorrhagic stroke.
Yes.
And the period of time was 3 years and 3 months.
Yeah. I tell you,
So I definitely want to read it and get the
and you are the family there. You are the people who are making sure you're getting the best care. You know what things bother them the most. So, different people are just different. So people come to me with goals. I can't assume what their goals are. For some people, the number one goal is just walking. They really don't care if they never read again, but walking. I just want to be able to walk around and not bump into walls or things like this, right? Other people don't care if they never walk again, but they have to read. They live to read, and the words and the print are mixing around. And I have actually a fantastic demonstration that it was put together by another optometrist, a colleague of mine in Michigan, that I could show if I can screen share.
Jim, can she screen share? Can she screen share?
No, not really. Right? It's okay. So I actually have a demonstration I can show you that's similar.
Do me a favor though, when we get off, share it on my Facebook page.
Oh, great idea. Yes, I have a group called Wow Vision Therapy. They're wonderful.
Okay.
They're wonderful.
Go ahead, share it with us though.
Great demos on their website. I love them. But I'll show you the one that I have. So, a lot of people don't realize that our right eye and our left eye have completely separate pictures of the world.
I
right?
was going to ask that question. That was another question.
That's true.
Do both, because I know both sides of your brain do different things. So I wanted to ask you, do both your eyes do? You're so smart, Dr. Jen.
Thank you. You are too, my dear. Well, okay. So let's say if this were your right eye's picture of a book that you wanted to read. I know you can't see the print probably because it's a little small, and let's say this is your left eye's picture. Now, when our two eyes are aiming well together, let me get it lined up, ladies and gentlemen. When your two eyes are aiming well together, the two pictures overlap perfectly and you get nice, clear text. You see that? But what happens when the two eyes misalign a fraction of a millimeter? This starts to happen to the print on the book. And the thing is our eyes are dynamic. They move around, right? All the time. Our eyes are the most active muscles in our entire body when we are awake. It's shocking. So it doesn't just go like this and stick like this. So sometimes it's momentary and it goes from, I might not be able to get it back to clear perfectly, but it goes from clear to blurry and back to clear and back, and then, really wild and crazy. It can shimmy all over the place, in and out of focus. But most people wouldn't necessarily call this double vision, right? They might just say it's real blurry. It's real blurry when I read. Right. I don't know why. And I have my glasses and they said it's the right prescription, but it's not helping.
Wow.
Oh, that's why the two eyes might not be aiming together. And the therapy involved in that is going in a very specific stepwise fashion. And it's difficult because if you try to jump too far too fast, which sometimes people do, they hear something online like, oh, I heard of this. There's this red and green thing online. I wear special 3D glasses. I'll just go watch a 3D movie maybe. That'll fix. Oh gosh, that's like trying to learn to swim by jumping off the Queen Mary. That's not a good idea, right? You're just jumping into deep water right from the start.
Right.
That's what therapy really does, by the way. Everyone should know this.
What does it do?
A great therapist figures out where you are, knows where you want to go, realizes you can't jump from A to Z. And they break it down. Let's go from A to B. Let's go from B to C.
Right.
D, E, F, Z. Here we are. We made it, guys. That's a good therapist. And if A to B is too hard, they figure out how to make it A and a half.
Yeah.
They figure it out.
Yeah.
They just make it happen. That's a great therapist. And that's somebody you want in your corner. So it doesn't matter what therapy.
The truth is that sometimes the patient doesn't know where it wants to go.
That's true.
And
right?
they don't know
bleeding.
what the issue is, because I keep going back to Dominic Cortellessa.
Who knew about that?
What's that?
Like, who knew about that thing with books, that it could do that?
Yes.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I knew, but that's why we're doing a show. Other people.
Yeah. Because I remember Dominic Cortellessa kind of like helped me defragment my brain. And he didn't know he was doing it, and I didn't know. Eventually, he got on to that. He was helping me to get tools in my belt of how to navigate through my brain injury.
Yes.
Because like people would talk to me, and I'd look at them, especially when I was tired, and I didn't understand like what they were saying. So one of the tools he gave me, and I keep saying this all the time, but I will until I'm blue in the face, because it's important. It's important.
It is.
It's important for people to understand you don't have to deal with it right then. You could say to them, you know what, I'll get back to you, or let's revisit this tomorrow. I'm not thinking too clear today. And one of the things that he always said to me was, speak from your heart. If you speak from your heart, people will trust you, and they'll help you, and they'll come back to you tomorrow.
Yes.
So, so my point is that I didn't know that I had that difficulty until he kind of saw it in me, and he helped me to gauge through it. So the same thing with, visions, sometimes you don't know, you want to go to Z, you don't know you're even at A, you don't even know.
RenéMarie, I have a great demo to explain to people what you're talking about. And it's about visual perception, meaning how our brains understand what we even see. So I love this demonstration. Somebody did it to me. And again, this is what therapy does, right? So I have this picture. It's a photograph. What is it?
Don't know.
I don't know.
Right? Okay, I'm going to try to make it easier, okay? I'm going to make it easier by turning it. Can you tell what it is?
No.
No, right? But it is a photograph, ladies. It really is.
It looks like trees or something on the right.
Yeah, I thought it was a turtle, right? But it's not a turtle. Not a turtle.
I don't know.
Okay, I couldn't figure it out either. They eventually had to tell me, so don't feel bad, anybody. Now, I'm going to show you.
You don't have as much schooling as you.
I've been through a billion years of school. It didn't matter. It's if you can't, until you get that moment when brain cell A connects with brain cell B and it clicks, we call it the aha moment. That's the moment that the patient learned or relearned something really critical, right? So what if I show you this way? Can you tell what that's supposed to be yet, now that I outlined it?
It looks like a cow or a...
Correct, Judy. It's a terrible photograph, a grainy photograph of a cow.
That's
And
a cow's
here's his
face.
snout, and here's his eyeball, and here's his little black
His ears.
white face, and his big long nose, and the shadowy side, and his other eyeball, and his other ear. Or her. We're not friends, so I don't know. But yeah, until somebody shows you something in the way that you needed it so that you could make that moment, you're not going to get it. And me just telling you, you should know this. It's an animal you've known about since you were 2. You know what it is. You know what it, me just keeping hitting you over the head with this board, it's nothing but frustrating.
It's frustrating.
And demoralizing.
No. And the other thing that Dominic...
And negative.
Another thing that Dominic did that I'm putting in my book and I'm trying to share with people is exactly what you said.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't push me. He was pulling me up.
Guided.
He was pulling me up, but he wasn't pulling me up too hard that I get frustrated. He'd pull me up and then he'd go, okay, we'll get back to this tomorrow. And then he'd come back. He wouldn't let it go. He'd come back. Hey, did you figure it out yet? It's okay. It's okay. He'd give me another little hint. He wouldn't tell me. That was another thing. He didn't do the work. He didn't do the work. I had to do the work. Talk to us about that.
there. This is what I tell my patients on the very first day of therapy.
And before you continue that, doctor,
Yes.
I want to let everybody know it's 10 o'clock.
Oh God.
That's okay. No. We're going to continue on. I gave Mark the Zoom. If Mark zooms in, then we'll close out. If he doesn't zoom in, then we'll continue to work. Does that work for everybody? So
Sure.
Mark McEwen, if you're watching, feel free to zoom in, and we'll continue the conversation. You have time. You have time, doctor, right?
I do, of course. I have time for you. Yes.
Okay.
You know, RenéMarie, the one thing you said right before that is so critical. I speak to all my patients. I also work with patients who aren't traumatic brain injury patients or acquired brain injury patients. I have young children that come to me because developmentally, they never developed these skills of eyes working together and things like that. And so they're at school and the teacher's like, read it, Johnny, you read it yesterday. Well, the eyes aren't working as well today and Johnny can't read it anymore. And Johnny doesn't feel very smart. And I'm like, okay, listen up. Who's gonna get you better? And they're usually like, you, Dr. Jen. And I'm like, no. So I'm like, and I say, who's doing all the exercises? My mom. Your mom's not doing the exercises, right? Who's doing all the exercises?
You.
The patient, right? The patient is the person who's healing themselves. I'm just the guide. Very much like you said, RenéMarie. Dominic he was your guide. He was your guide. He helped you know how big of a jump to make and when. That's what an excellent therapist does, no matter what area it is.
And what another key, and I'm sure you do this, is he always had my back. He never let it go. I always knew that no matter what I did good, I did bad, I did indifferent, he was there. He was there. We were going to go through this together. And he was going to help me to understand the broader pictures that I can share that with everybody. And to share with people that these are the tools that you really do need in your belt. So I'm sure that you are the same way. You're very engaged in your patients.
Absolutely. I am in your corner. And I think every really great vision therapy doc I know is exactly the same way, no matter how they structure their practice, whether they're individually in the therapy room or they're not. Nobody picks this line of work because they don't care. Everybody picks this line of work because we care. It is a vocation. It is a devotion. And it makes such, there's a little saying that we like to use in our community, vision therapy changes lives. And it does, because if we go back to that quote that I love so much, when vision is working well, it guides and it leads. And when it's not working well, it interferes. And oftentimes my patients, especially acquired brain injury patients, kind of blame themselves. Because when they can't read anymore, they're like, I'm just not smart anymore, I guess. They start to get down on themselves sometimes. And I'm like, no. It's a bunch of cells that aren't doing what you just told them to do. And they always did it for you before the stroke, and now they're not. So that's okay. We're going to retrain them. We have this amazing thing called neuroplasticity. Our brains are malleable, they're changeable. And they used to think that they weren't changeable at like age 2 or age 5. And then age kept changing. Guess what? They found out they're malleable and changeable all throughout our lives now. So nobody should be discouraged. Not somebody who's 26, not somebody who's 106. Everything is changeable. And I've seen patients. Sure, we get great and fast improvement in the first 6 months after a stroke, but I've seen patients improve things, and ones I've worked with, and I've read other case studies, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years after a neurological incident, you can still improve.
Yeah, that is another key to my recovery, which continues every day.
Of course.
It continues every day. But like we were saying before, I have to engage in it. I have to be the one wanting and willing to grow and develop and to improve myself. It doesn't matter my age. I'm 57 now. It doesn't matter. I'm not willing to say I'm at my peak. No, I'm not at my peak. I'm still growing and
Yeah.
recovering from. And the other thing is, people have said to me, don't call it your stroke. Don't hold on to it, which I actually find.
Oh,
Well, there's two philosophies to that, and I understand one
Yeah.
side. One side is you
okay.
don't want to give in to the stroke. You don't want to give in that this is your life now. The life is determined. Your stroke is making you who you are. It's not. It's not. It's only a part of your stroke. But to me, it was such an important eye-opening tool and experience that I experienced it. I want to hold on. I want to make sure that I always remember what happened so that I could use what I've learned and better the world for it. That's why, I understand both philosophies.
That's why you rock, RenéMarie.
What's that?
That's why you rock, RenéMarie. So great. I love this show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You've taken something difficult and you've turned it into a real opportunity to help and to encourage and, spread the love.
Yeah, that's exactly what we try to do. We try to spread the love. Jim, could you do me a favor? Could you put up the visual integration video slide that you have? Can you put it where your photo is supposed to be?
Yep, it's on the first page right now.
No, that says visual after stroke. There's another one that I sent you. It's got a brain on it.
Oh, shit.
That's okay. Take your time. We have plenty of time. So, so talk to us about the visual integration, Dr. Jen.
So a lot of people don't realize how much of our brains process visual information. They think there's an eyeball and they just shoot it all the way to the back. And so you got a little tiny spot in the back and you got an eyeball and that's it. Wrong. Okay. Basically, your eyes capture information, right? We talked about the efficient images that are half missing or, sliding around or, being viewed out of order. That does go all the way to the back. Your brain immediately sends that information forward. So a lot of people who suffer from these problems of visual agnosia meaning not knowing and not understanding something that they used to understand. That's because when the brain is sending the visual information back to other areas, that it's not moving through. It's not getting through. Oh, look!
Mr. Mark McEwen!
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
You sounded great. Keep going.
You know what? I think this show we're going to do a little bit different. If everybody doesn't mind, can we combine both shows?
Well, I could stay on for a little while longer. I'm sure Mark has plenty to say.
Yeah, Hi, Mark. Yes, it's very exciting.
I've nothing to say.
So
I doubt that.
So what we're not going to do is we're not going to close out. That's what I'm saying. Because we usually close out of one show, then stop and go back in. But we're just going to slide right through. We're going to slide.
That's the magic of Zoom.
Yes.
Isn't that great? Nobody has to get off the set.
Before Zoom.
Right, I know. We had a problem with Skype. Remember, Mark? Our problem with Skype. We couldn't figure it out.
Good.
So I'm very, very excited that Zoom worked with you. So let Dr. Jen finish what you were talking about.
Oh, I was just talking about visual agnosias that, and we talked about that sort of inflammation and those processes that sort of block the cells from sending the signals the way they want to. So with our brains, it goes from the eyes, it goes to the back of the brain, and then it gets shuttled into all these different areas, including like even all the way back up to the front of the brain in order to be able to make conscious, accurate eye movements like we do, what they call tracking when we read. The frontal eye fields are responsible. So all the way through, just for visual perception and being able to name objects that you see. So not that aphasia is a visual problem, but sends information to those language centers, or else the language centers wouldn't be able to figure out the words for them. They have to know what the brain saw first. If you see a cat walking in front of you, the speech centers have the word cat and they're just waiting to send it out there. But the brain has to first, the visual centers first have to shuttle the information.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So they estimate, it's really hard to get a good number, 60% minimum of the brain is involved with vision.
Wow.
So well over half.
Wow.
And it's, you know, it's an important sense. It's the one that typically guides us, unless, as you pointed out earlier, RenéMarie, someone was born or at an early age is totally blind. So it's, you know, it's really pretty fascinating.
It is. It really is. It really is. Let me take a few moments to introduce our wonderful guest that just joined us, and I'm honored. I'm always honored to to communicate with our guest that just joins us, Mark McEwen, the author of Change in the Weather: Life After Stroke. Mark was.
So, thank you, everybody. I am the most blessed person in the entire world to have spent this 2 hours with all of you. I want to shout out to everybody in the world. Please love each other. Have hope. There is hope in the world, and we hope we brought you some today. Enjoy the moments. Life is a gift. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, we forgot to blow our kisses. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
God bless you all.
Love it.
Love you. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you so much.
Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar, no me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. Caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Es tan difícil para mí y para ti. Yo, ¿qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar, llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar.